church. We were looking at potential staff members. We had an open position, and at the recommendation of a trusted advisor, we were looking at Noe for this position. He was young, he had limited experience, but he came with strong recommendations. And it was clear when I talked to him that God was working in his life and using him. We spent time discussing the position as a team at the church. We prayed through it. I love Noe, and we chose not to move forward with him. And that's an odd way to do a speech where I want to nominate someone to be the second vice president of the convention, but I want to share with you why here in just a moment. Noe is a good man who has led his church extremely well, and it is my privilege to nominate him today to be the second vice president of the Southern Baptist Convention. In a time when we as Southern Baptists are struggling with questions like how we might see more people trust Jesus, how we can reach increasingly diverse communities, how our influence might spread far beyond the southeastern United States, I am convinced that Noe is the perfect candidate to serve our family of churches. Noe's story is one of grace and redemption. He grew up in a deeply broken home. He began using drugs and alcohol in the 6th grade. He continued walking away from the Lord until this culminated with a suicide attempt at 18 years old. It was after this that God began to grab his heart. He was gloriously saved and began to walk faithfully with Jesus. Noe is a graduate of East Texas Baptist University. He's a graduate of the Gateway Baptist Theological Seminary. He's a graduate of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. He served at Cross Church in Northwest Arkansas, at First Baptist Church of Nashville, Tennessee, Second Baptist Church in Houston, Texas, and the Valley Baptist Church in San Rafael, California. He is currently the pastor of the North Phoenix Baptist Church in Phoenix, Arizona, where he's pastored since 2016. During his time at North Phoenix, God has been gracious, and Noe has led them to see growth in attendance, baptisms, and more. They're experiencing, after a period of lengthy and significant decline, an incredible period of growth in their worship attendance. Over the last 2 years, they have baptized more people than the previous 4 years combined. When Noe arrived at North Phoenix, they estimated that approximately 90% of the church was Anglo. Today, their staff estimates that over half the church, or right at half the church, are made up by ethnic minorities. I could continue on, but for the sake of time, I won't. He is married to Clancy. They have 4 children. In conclusion, about a decade ago, when considering Noe for an open staff position, you might say that when given the chance to vote for him, I voted no. And I'm telling you, it was the worst decision I've ever made as a leader of a church. I want to encourage you today to not make the mistake that I made a decade ago, and instead, in just a few minutes, join me in casting a vote for Noe Garcia as the second vice president of the Southern Baptist Convention. Thank you.
Are there any further nominations for the office of second vice president?
There are none.
Seeing no other nominations, then let me have Don Currens, our registration secretary, come up to cast the ballot for second vice president on behalf of the convention.
Mr. President, it is my honor to cast the ballot for the convention for second vice president for Noe Garcia.
Declare him elected.
My privilege to declare elected Noe Garcia to second vice president. So let's give God thanks for all the officers that were elected today and for God moving here in our midst. And I'm going to invite, if we will, some of our very special guests to come on stage with me.